Yeah, it was really nice to do a show because normally I'm more like campaigns, lookbooks, editorials. So it was like a dive deep into the show business in America. And I love the adrenaline rush which you get because it's just 50 minutes and the models have to go and like a buckle fell off and then we have to put it back, tape it, and like pray that it won't fall off when she's walking the runway. I was like looking at her all the time, please don't let the buckle stay, you know. But yeah, I absolutely love the rush of shows, and hopefully I'll be doing a lot of shows this season in September. So fingers crossed.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Corner. My name is Serena. I'm the executive producer at Four Bent Corners. Here we are in New York with the wonderful Julia Muller. She's a stylist for Vogue, Numero, Harper's Bazaar, and plenty more. We're going to dive deep into her work. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So literally a year ago from this time, you and I were sitting in Amsterdam in the Four Bent Corners studio having a chat about your move to New York. You're from the Netherlands originally, so isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird, but it's fate.
Yeah, absolutely. So time obviously goes by really fast, but I just find it funny that here we are in New York. You're originally from the Netherlands. We met because we worked on a shoot together for Coty, and that was where we really got to see your skill set, and we're just blown away by your vision, your talent, and your passion for styling. So take us back, like where did that begin? Tell us about your journey.
So I actually started with psychology, so something very, very different. I always loved fashion. I saw my mom dressing up in these beautiful pencil skirts and like these jackets, and she looks awesome. And I always was dressing myself like different than other kids, so I was always into fashion, but I didn't know I wanted to become a stylist. So when I graduated high school, I moved into my studies with psychology. And then I still didn't know like fashion was something for me, but I knew something was missing. So I didn't know what. And there was a day I went with my mom to a museum in Den Haag, and there was an exposition of Chanel. And I was just wandering around there and I was looking, and I had like a feeling, butterflies, and it was very strange because it's something I've never experienced, only with guys. So I fell in love with fashion then. And then I started exploring, okay, what can I do with this? And styling was one of the things that spoke to me the most. And yeah, that's actually how it started. I finished my studies and moved to Paris and started this journey.
That's so cool. I'm always fascinated by how the journey begins, and oftentimes it's not the way you would expect, right? I mean, you studied psychology, you ended up at a museum, of Chanel's exhibit, and you just felt that calling. You felt that calling, and then afterwards, then you pursued additional education at ESMOD in Paris. So what was that experience like?
It was like with psychology, it was just learning, and I mean, it was interesting, but it didn't feel like my calling. And when I was at that study, it didn't feel like school because I was enjoying myself so much, learning about designers, looking at fashion shows, making mood boards. I was like, this is not school, this is so much fun. So then I knew, okay, this is it, I'm sold.
And so you obviously didn't fall into the trap of having to get a job for money. You really were like, I need to feel good about what I do every day. So did that come from your parents? Like, where did that come from? Because not everybody has that vision and that pursuit. Yeah, no,
interesting question. So my father is from Czech Republic. He moved with 25 crowns in that day to the Netherlands. Well, he actually flew from the communism, so he had literally nothing. And he built himself up as a musician. So he was always a freelancer himself. And now he is teaching to big groups about voice, and he made it into like a really good business career. And so I always had the example of my father and my mom standing behind him, that you have to follow your heart, you know? So even though it's difficult, but yeah.
It is, because the path is not linear, as we know. It's ups and downs and turns, and it's not as anybody would expect. So that is one of the challenges, but also what creates a lot of excitement with ending up in this industry. And so you graduated from Esmode. You moved back to the Netherlands, or did you stay in Paris?
No, I moved back. I did my internship at El Netherlands. So while I was still on my study, I was traveling back and forth. Cool. But then I did my internship there, and then I eventually moved back to Amsterdam. But I always kept on commuting between Paris and Amsterdam, if I'm honest. So it was still like a little bit a part of mine. But my home base was Amsterdam. Yeah.
Cool. And so when was the first time you ever styled for like a cover magazine, and which one was that?
So for when I was 26 was the first time I worked with very dear friends of mine, Giel Dome and Kenneth van der Velde. Dome van der Velde is their photography name. And we connected, and we are still working together. They are doing great things in LA, working with Lady Gaga, and they're doing amazing things. So it's funny that we grown in the same path. But that was my first editorial shoot with them, and it was such a story where we put butterflies on a model, like it were
real. They were real.
They were real, but they were dead, unfortunately.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
They wouldn't sit. But we had the model, she had to sit still, and then we put all butterflies on her face throughout her outfit, and we had to be so careful because if one would break, it cost us 200 euros.
Oh, wow.
So I was already like really stressing out. But in the end, like that image, it's like the image that brings me back to where the creativity of my story began. So it's, yeah.
That's so great. And to have that experience at such a young age. So you were 26, you were styling, you were doing editorials, and then what was kind of the breakthrough moment where you ended up working for Vogue?
So I think that was also the breakthrough because nobody believes you until you get the right publications. It's kind of strange, but you get like a credibility. So my first shoot was for Vogue Portugal. I was doing a story with a great photographer. I invested myself with brands, buying in, returning. It was very scary because it was like 10,000 euros. You just put in a shoot and hope everything will return. But I thought like I need the brands to make this magazine. And I sent it in and I didn't hear it back. So I thought, okay, it probably won't be anything. And then I finally got an email back and they said, yeah, we want to publish your story. And I was like, what? So, yeah, and once you have that story out, you know, you're in the right path. It starts,
trajectory.
Exactly, you start rolling and you get more magazines, you get more Vogues, you get more other Numero, Harper's Bazaar. So once you're in the loop, you're in, you know, and it's just breaking through to that one story that will set you on the map. So,
right.
Yeah.
And so you had been doing that for quite some time. And so you had a taste of that fast-paced environment in Europe. So I'd like to talk about that experience and at that age, because sometimes when people are exposed to that, it's either, oh, this industry is great, or I got to get out of here. So how did you navigate through that fast-paced fashion world and dynamics when working on these editorials?
I think you learn on the way. You will first make a lot of mistakes and then you will get better and better. You get more confident in what you're doing as well. And I think it's a learning process. I'm still learning literally every day. And sometimes you can, if you're more confident, you will do a better job because you trust yourself. I think that's the most important part. Yeah, I think that's the navigation. Just keep learning, I guess, of mistakes you have made and also of the good things that you have done, and then you progress and you become better.
Yeah, absolutely. And just giving those who are not in this industry like more of a look, like oftentimes we were like, is it very much like Devil Wears Prada vibes? Like, is it really that caustic working within the fashion
Um, yeah, I love that movie.
It's a good one.
It's a good movie.
Who doesn't like that one?
But yeah, I don't think so. No, people are more normal, I guess.
Yeah.
We're all humans. Obviously, some clients are more difficult than others, but you just go with it. I think definitely coming from Amsterdam, we have like a vibe where we don't take ourselves too seriously. I think that's a vibe that you have to have because we're not like curing cancer. We're like just making something beautiful, and it's very subjective. So someone can love your work and someone can hate it, makes it also more difficult because you can also doubt, what I'm doing, is it good or is it like what the client wants? And like you have to be on the same page, right?
So talk to me about your process and what's it like when, I mean, you're repped by the wall group.
Mm-hmm.
You get a brief,
Mm-hmm.
and then you decide on whether or not this project is a fit for you, and how do you make that decision?
I think when I started, I said more yes to anything which came on my path, which was also good because you never know where the opportunity comes from. But now I have to say more no. So it really depends on, is the photographer like amazing, or is the magazine amazing, or is the commercial job, does it pay well? Like these are all factors that like count in the decision what I will do. And it also has to fit my style as well, because if the style is so different from what I do, then it wouldn't make sense for me to do it because I want to bring my expertise in it and my view. And if the client, then it wouldn't be a good match. So I think all these things, yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about your style and where you get your inspiration.
My style is feminine. I think there's always a view of feminine, but also combined with masculine. So the combination and the right balance. I love to work with color. I love to work with shapes, with layering. And my inspiration comes from anything. So when I walk in nature, or I see a beautiful human walking by, or art, a lot of times I get inspired by art. So I just did a series with Salvador Dali as an inspiration, and with Ben Hassett. It was an amazing shoot, and that derived from Salvador Dali. So yeah,
it
often.
must have been really surreal. Like, so what are some of the elements that were pulled from Dali's work that influenced the style and the direction?
Well, your word is actually perfect, surreal, because he was a surrealist. So Ben Hassett made a shot on camera of the model, and then he printed it out, and then we did like jewelry on top of the model, and then we made a picture of that. So you almost had like a really big eye on her with jewelry, or a very strange necklace, which would be very surrealistic in that sense. I also found an amazing designer from London where it was actually a funny story. My friends were coming from the Netherlands, and I shipped the items from London to Amsterdam. I asked my friends to put very weird jewelry in their suitcase. And they flew here because it was cheaper than to ship immediately from London to New York.
My goodness, yeah.
But so it was amazing jewelry with weird eyes and like masks and yeah.
Do you find that you have to do that a lot? I mean, now that you're based in New York, right? How do you find these unique objects, and do you have access?
Actually, that was one of the things which I loved moving to New York, because you have to become creative again, and you get to know so many new amazing designers. Eventually in Amsterdam and in Paris, you know your designers, your go-to, you have your list, and then you go through that. Okay, Schiaparelli, what looks does she have? And you go to, and here, there's so many amazing New York designers, and which really inspired me to develop my styling as well. So yeah.
Cool. So obviously where one is, right, you pull inspiration. I think that's what I find so fascinating about moving to a different country and being exposed. It's like you expand your world, right, in different ways. And you could spend time there, you spend time in the other place, and it influences your work. And so now, being in New York, how's that been? You've been here now for a year almost. So talk to me a little bit about that.
I think New York, I heard it from a lot of friends who are creatives. It's like being bipolar because you have so many ups, like the best ups you can imagine, like working with amazing brands, amazing photographers, like, and then
Highs
you're on
high.
a high, you know, like you think you can conquer the world. And then you have like these crazy lows because it's so expensive here. And you have to earn so much more money to provide for my family and like all the stress that comes with it. And then, you know, it's always like a roller coaster. It has been in Amsterdam as well as a freelancer because you have periods where it's super busy and periods when it's not. It's part of being a freelancer.
Absolutely.
But I feel like here it's like taken to an extreme.
Yeah.
And when you're on that high, it's, you can't imagine.
It's
like,
unbeatable.
Yeah, it's
There's
unbeatable.
nothing that compares to it.
No.
And I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, this will always be home. I mean, going back and forth, it's the best of both worlds. And I think we're very lucky that we're able to do and navigate both. But I do hear you with that. In terms of Amsterdam, it seems there aren't these extremes there. And I'm trying to understand why that is, because there's still a lot of opportunity there. It's just less fast-paced, but also very efficient in terms of working. So it's interesting to talk about the comparison of working in Europe versus the United States.
The way of living, like for example, rent is here already like so expensive, and in Holland it's also very expensive compared to where it was. Don't get me wrong, it's getting more expensive. A lot of my friends are complaining like, oh my gosh, you know. So it's definitely getting worse there as well. But I think here everything is more surrounded by money because you have to survive and you have to earn so much more money, which is why it's more focused here, and it's more about work and getting the numbers and let's go. And I think in the Netherlands we're very more used to having time off, taking vacations. Okay, you know, I work very hard and then close the laptop and let's go out in the park, have some beers.
It's been impressive to witness that, you know, as a New Yorker in Amsterdam, in Europe. That's such a sacred time, you know, having that time off, having that time to reset has been incredible to see, and how that's valued. I mean, I remember when I worked in an agency, you know, people used to brag about how late they were up working. Like, oh, I was working until 3 a.m. And I was like, I'm just going to go grab some coffee. You win. So, and that's the funny part about living here as well, because you do end up in that trap of going to a party or a networking event, and it's immediately like, oh, what's your name? What do you do? Because work becomes your identity, because it's like what you have to do constantly to even, you know, make a name for yourself, make it happen, right? I mean, times have changed. So it's cool to see the two sides of that. You coming from that world here, and then me coming from this world there. Yeah. So it's like the flipped version of that. So what do you prefer?
Well, now
depends on the day.
Yeah, it depends on the day. Exactly. Am I on my up or am I on my down? Yeah, no, it really depends. I mean, I think both has their charms, you know? Like if anything was perfect, then, you know, life would be so easy to make the choices. But
also, I don't think we'd feel alive. Like you have to feel these extremes, because then it creates contrast in life, and then you have something to compare it to. And then I also think that certain ways of being and doing things serve you at a certain time in your life, but then it phases out as you evolve in your career, as your life changes, different chapters, things like that. A lot of elements come into play. But how funny that a year ago we were in Amsterdam, you hadn't moved to New York, so you've been here. Obviously, from the outside, especially looking at your Instagram, the work that you've been doing, all of the styling that you've been doing for all these like major fashion magazines is really impressive. I love to dig a little deeper and see the less glamorous side of this industry. So I want to.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, so I think the biggest misconception about fashion is that it's glamorous, because as a stylist, I mean, of course, you have sometimes a party, but honestly, you're too tired to go to. So it's not glamorous because you have to carry so much stuff. You're sweating like thousands, not thousands, but my full car of bags. You have to do returns. You have to do shopping. You're stressed that something will get broken, that the shipping will go well. Like there is like so much more stuff that goes into it that so many people don't know.
Yeah.
Everything behind the picture, like even photographers sometimes don't know, like, oh yeah, we can do this and blah blah blah, and then no, because it takes like a week to prep. You have to start asking designers, something has to be shipped. Yeah. We have to go through whole New York, get a car, like get all these press agency items. And then when it's done, everything has to be returned because I don't have a big fashion closet where everything suddenly pops up.
And I can imagine, especially when you're renting an Alexander McQueen piece that's like over, $5,000-$10,000 and the stress of possibly getting makeup on that and how, that could be a huge problem, right? On set.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, usually for editorials, it's more samples, so then you're a little bit less stressed. But still, the outfit has to go back. And
in perfect condition.
In perfect condition. I just had recently with the recent shoot for Vogue Arabia, where an item got not delivered by Maison Margiela, and they were saying, yeah, it's delivered, but nobody signed for it. There was no name on the file, and it's not delivered. So it was like going back and forth, and I was getting stressed. Eventually, it was found, and we sent it back, and everything was okay.
Was it found in time for the shoot?
Oh my gosh, no, not for the shoot. It was not in time, but there was. I mean, as long as it's found and back. But like the stress, of. Indeed, like $1,000, and sometimes with jewelry shoot, I have to sign for $2 million.
Absolutely.
For if something gets broken or it's stressful.
When I worked briefly with Mark Seliger, and we were doing an Uma Thurman shoot, and they had literally security guards in one of the rooms with all of the high fashion Bulgari jewelry in there. It was very stressful.
Yes.
I don't even want to touch any of that.
No, you're probably not allowed as well.
Exactly.
Only the stylist,
right.
like literally, nobody was allowed to touch it, and you're like looking, okay, is it going well? And like, oh yeah, sorry.
Exactly.
And then you're sweating, and you can't open the necklace, and like nobody can help you, and oh my gosh, glamorous.
Right. And so what advice would you have for anybody who's like, oh, styling, that seems like such a cool industry to go into? What would you share with them?
I think you have to be absolutely in love with it, because it's a very, very hard business. I have to be honest, getting there where you want, the ups and the downs, even though it looks glamorous and you get to do really cool stuff, and sometimes I bless myself that I'm on a different set, every day is different, but there comes so much baggage. You have so much competition, you have to innovate yourself constantly, you have to keep going for meetings, meeting new people, getting new clients. It's something you have to absolutely love. And if you do, then go for it, then really go for it. And don't give up, because it's very easy to give up in this business, because one person can say, yeah, your styling sucks, but it's subjective. Like, let that person talk. I've been told, like in the beginning, definitely of my career, by very important people, like, no, you're not gonna make it. And how do you keep yourself sane and think, okay, maybe you don't like it, but maybe someone else is.
Right, having the faith in yourself and your abilities.
Exactly. It's hard, but if you absolutely love it, like how I explained with the Chanel, that you have butterflies, then it can be something very beautiful. And then I really think you just have to go for it, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something. Yeah. Or let it be a fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the process of getting representation? I mean, currently you are represented by the Wall Group in both in Europe and in the United States, in LA and New York. What was that process like?
So actually, my first agency was in the Netherlands, was Erik Elenbaas. I actually was represented by them because of the Vogue shoots we were talking about. They saw something in me, and then, yeah, they like your work, and then you start getting repped. And in the beginning, it's definitely helpful. Like, they get you jobs, and you get more into the business. And then with the Wall Group, I was looking for an agency in New York. I always wanted to go to New York since I'm 21. It was one of my biggest dreams. Yeah. And yeah, you talk to different agencies and you see who you match with. And I talked with Mandy. She's actually Dutch as well. Mm-hmm. And we had a great connection, and her values and how she sees things and how she appreciates the things that I do. Yeah. And she saw something in me which I want my agent to see, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it clicked, and I was, you know, convinced the Wall Group is something for me, and vice versa. So, yeah.
So it obviously makes things a little bit easier. Do you think it's possible to make it in the industry without being repped?
I do. I think it's sometimes a little bit more difficult, and sometimes also more easy. Because your agent, a lot of big brands go to agencies and ask, okay, do you have a stylist for this? And they will forward you your portfolio, and then they can say yes or no. Yeah. When you don't have an agent, you have to do everything for yourself.
It makes things much harder.
Yeah, it makes it definitely harder. But sometimes there are, for example, clients who don't want to pay the agency fee, and you can go a little bit higher with your price. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it really also depends where you are. For example, in the Netherlands, a lot of artists have left their agencies, and they're doing very well without them.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I've noticed in the hiring process, I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not.
Yeah, I think when you're already known, I think that might be, like, when you're already known, you might not need it as much because clients will find you. Mm-hmm. But when you're starting, it's very good to have an agent because they will
open the doors.
And I think definitely in New York you have to have an agent. Yeah
Agreed.
Yeah,
I think it just makes it easier, especially when you're dealing with the high profile clients that you're working on with all of these editorial cover shoots. It makes it easier for everybody involved. Can you tell me, what is your why? If you had to say, this is my why, this is the reason why I do what I do every day, what is that?
Because I love it. It's like it's such a big part of me. I can't imagine doing something else. I've thought about it. But then what would I do? Because it can't be replaced, because when I'm on set, I'm grabbing fabrics, creating a dress out of nowhere. It's such a passion of mine. It would feel like such a loss if I would have to do something else. So it's just something I don't want to live without. I can live without it, but I don't want it.
It gives you life.
Yes, it does. Yes.
So cool. How do you navigate being on set? And I mean, I've seen how much stuff you bring when we did that shoot together. We had a whole section dedicated to wardrobe and all of the accessories. It was impressive. And have you ever been in a situation, I can't imagine, but I have to ask, have you ever been in the situation where a client was asking for something specifically on set that you didn't have? And how did you deal with that?
I don't think so. I mean, and even if they wanted something, then I would just let my assistant go and grab it. Like, I want to give my 1000%, and so if it's not there, we will make it happen that it will be there. Yeah.
One of the things that I loved seeing when working with you was just how quick in problem solving you are. Mm-hmm. So you see the issue, there's a wardrobe malfunction, you do a little pulling here and there, and then boom, it's like set. And I was like, how did she do that? She's a magician. And seeing that in action was very, very cool. What do you just like tap into another aspect of yourself to? Like,
I actually
go into a meditative state where you're just like,
I actually like problem solving, if I'm honest. It lets you be creative. I mean, if there's a problem, you just have to solve it. It's like mathematics, and you just
Yeah.
it just comes, and yeah.
You thrive under pressure. That
Yes.
pressure, though. I
Yes.
mean, it's halfway through the day, production's ramping up, people are a little bit behind, and you just lock in, and you're able to kind of quickly solve the issues, which is really cool to see.
So sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you. But
So, Julia, you've been doing a lot of really interesting work since you've moved here to the States, and most recently you worked with Hale Bailey. Tell me about that experience.
yeah, so I've worked with Vogue Arabia for many years, and the creative director texted me, "Hey, do you want to do the shoot?
Yeah.
It's with Hale Bailey and Raleigh Brothers," and I was like, "Yeah, duh." And yeah, but it's in LA. Okay, fine. I mean, I love LA, so yeah, we flew there, and I added another shoot because it's easier to do 2 shoots because you're already
There.
you can get more in. So I brought a bunch of styling in, and a lot of things were shipped there. And Hale Bailey was absolutely amazing, of course, stunning and super kind. And it was such a fun day. Like, we had this high jewelry and like the biggest dresses, and it was like a little Cinderella story.
Wow. And so you had 10 looks for that day shoot.
Yeah, correct. Well, I actually, as you know, I always bring extra, so the room was filled with a lot of dresses, so you never know how it fits her and what she thinks. But yeah, we had so many great choices, and everything looked stunning on her, obviously. So yeah, it was such a fun day.
And what were the mood boards like for that specific shoot?
So Billie Holiday was the theme because that was one of her inspirations. So we worked also with the flower, the gardenia, which was in her hair, but we didn't want it too much because that would be, like not modern anymore. So we just did it once or twice to have like the feeling of her glamorousness as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really nice to have her role model and incorporate that in her look. So yeah,
Super cool. And did the fact that she was in The Little Mermaid, the new rendition that Disney has created, did that influence the shoot at all? Was that a consideration?
Not really. No, I think it was more about her personally and about her style and her as more her as herself in a way portrayed. So it wasn't about the movie. No.
Yeah. And when you received a brief on her, did it tell you about like information about her, things that she likes, and things that don't work for her?
No,
Yeah.
we didn't receive the brief. We
Yeah.
talked with the creative director about the style that they wanted to go for.
Sure.
And obviously that brief was also conversed to her. But I look her up, of course, on Instagram, what she's wearing, what kind of shapes she likes, what kind of body she has, because she's kind of petite. You don't want, you don't want her to have a dress which is very big here because she will be falling away,
Sure.
So it has
Yeah.
to be something which has a little bit of neckline that she looks taller, have certain heels. And
I love
like,
those styling
yeah.
hacks.
Yeah, no, exactly. Make her look
Yeah.
her best self.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a very fun day. It was stunning weather. We had these amazing gowns.
California.
And yeah, then it's like, that was one of my ups, you're like, oh my gosh, I just love my job. Yeah.
I love that. And recently you were working on the fashion show for Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, correct.
Where was that?
So it's a trunk show, and it was in Miami. And it was really cool. Yeah, it was really nice to do a show because normally I'm more like campaigns, lookbooks, editorials. So it was like a dive deep into the show business in America. And I loved the adrenaline rush which you get because it's just 50 minutes and the models have to go and like a buckle fell off and then we have to put it back, tape it, and like pray that it won't fall off when she's walking the runway. I was like looking at her all the time, please don't let the buckle stay, But yeah, I absolutely love the rush of shows, and hopefully I'll be doing a lot of shows this season in September. So fingers crossed.
Yeah,
and
for Fashion Week.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And so the difference between the editorial process and the fashion runways is that you are already given the looks and you have to style them for the runway shows. So you're
Correct.
given a book of all the the models, the fittings per model?
Yeah, so you have a fitting, and then you'll decide which model will be wearing what.
You decide that?
Yes, together. No, of course, together with the team.
Designer. Yeah.
With the producers and a big team.
Yeah.
But like together we see what looks best, and the tailor is there. And sometimes it's just a shoe issue because you have shoes and okay, which model has shoe size 38? Okay, she has to wear this look.
What does the stylist do for the runway shows when, the team already has the design set?
Yeah, so with runway shows, you have actually three different ways. Probably there are many more, but like I think the three major ways is either you have a designer like for the trunk show. I mean, Nicolas Gasquier, everyone had already their looks. So for me, it was honestly to have a conversation with the team and see which looks would fit the best with which model, do the fittings, make it like to their shapes. Then the second one is I did a show for Scotch and Soda, for example, and then you style the looks yourself. Then you have a bigger part as a stylist in how the show will look. And then you have like working with other big designers where the dresses or the outfits are already there, but it needs more styling. So you need shoes, accessories, also which model will be fitting what. So it really depends on the brand and the creative director of that brand.
Yeah. So with Scotch and Soda, for example, do they just say, here are all the items, these are all the accessories, have fun, and just create the look yourself? And then you have to get them approved by the creative director.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So they have like Scotch and Soda is such a big brand, so they have
huge.
So many clothing, and then you can just be a kid in a candy shop and just start creating amazing looks from their new collection. And obviously you have to go through a whole team, the marketing. Okay, this piece has to be in, and that's definitely with shows. And then with editorials, it's also can be very different. For example, if you work for the Hill Bailey shoot, the creative director already had the mood board, but sometimes or many times create it ourselves, or the photographer has the mood board, or I create it, and then you start from scratch, making a theme.
Cool. I'd love to hear some like bloopers or horror stories that you might have. I mean, I can only imagine in the fashion world things happen. So if there's anything you could share, it'd be love to hear.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So many things always go wrong. But I had one shoot. It was for Vogue Portugal. We all went to Paris. We're staying in a lovely hotel. Everything was set. We had gorgeous models. And the hair and makeup was done. They were both standing in their looks, like ready to go, and the camera broke.
What do you mean the camera broke?
Well, it stopped working.
It
stopped working.
What?
And we were like, okay, what now? And
oh my gosh.
Get a new camera. So it was just like,
I hope it wasn't on a Sunday, because if it was in Europe, oof.
Oh my gosh, I don't remember what day it was, but it was really horrible. And like, it was 3 p.m. and we didn't have one shot in.
Wait, and so what time did the shoot start? What was the call time?
9 a.m.
No.
Yeah, so we were just waiting, and the models were in their clothes, and like it was hot, and started sweating.
No AC in Europe, by the way.
My
guys.
goodness.
Hardly ever.
But then suddenly one of the assistants like made the camera work and started working, and then we have to do 12 shots in 3 hours because we have to be out of the studio at 6. So we went and done it, and it was like a speeding. And it's so funny because it was actually one of my favorite stories. We made 2 covers.
Wow.
And
so super efficient.
It was very efficient. And it's so funny because we were talking about pressure, and I thrive under pressure because
really
I
do.
love it because it gives you such an adrenaline rush, why I also love shows.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun in the end, like to have like.
And now you have a great story.
Exactly.
My
exactly.
Gosh.
Yeah. And another time there was, I had booked a campaign for Essentiel. I don't know if you know the brand. It's
what is it?
Essentiel.
Okay.
Essentiel. You write it. And it's a very big Belgian brand. It's sold worldwide. It's stunning. And I was so happy I was booked. So it was in Antwerp.
Yeah.
And I
city.
always like have, you know, and I had an hour of traffic, you know, in my mind. So I was good, you know, ready to go in my car. And I was just in front of the tunnel on the highway.
Yeah.
And you have like these red cross and we all had to stand still. The tunnel was closed.
No.
Something like
to get to Antwerp.
to get to Antwerp.
Oh no. So what'd you do?
I
How did you go?
I had to wait. I was waiting in my car for 3 hours. And the shoot had started there. It was one of my major campaign shoots. And I
Wow.
could not go back. I could not go
Nobody
forward.
could go from the from
Well,
the
I
Netherlands,
was
essentially.
myself because the team was already in
Oh
Antwerp.
no.
Yes, so there were Belgian photographers, Belgian models. So
So
I
they had to
was
wait.
stuck in traffic. Luckily, the hair took a little bit longer than expected. So
Oh, okay.
in
So it
the
worked
end,
out.
it worked out. But
Yeah.
oh my God, I was so mortified
Wow.
because I'm a control freak and like this was so much out of control. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think a healthy level of being a control freak in this industry is a given for everybody. I think.
Yeah, I think you
Speak
have
for
to.
everybody,
I
yeah.
think you have to.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things, you know, you can lose things can get broken. You have to write everything down, make
Yeah.
of everything pictures, like an
Yeah.
advice to beginning stylists, make pictures, proof of everything. Because, you know, if you do a return, make a picture, I return it. Even
Yeah.
make a picture of the career. Here you go, I hand it in.
Yeah.
Because you need to have the proof.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. The diligence that goes into every little thing that
Yeah.
people don't even know. They just see the end result and they're like, oh, wow, so fun, so cool. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
What's next? I hope to stay in New York for a while.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love Europe and I will travel back and forth, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I want to grow, do better things, do greater brands, work
Yeah.
with amazing new photographers, and keep learning. And
Yeah. Would you
and
ever
enjoy it.
work on features or Netflix series?
Why not?
Yeah.
Like I mean, I would never say blindly no. I
Yeah.
just want to see what project it is, and
Cool.
yeah, definitely, I'm open to anything, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's wonderful. And any other things that you wanted to share before we?
Yes, no, I definitely hope when anyone is doubting, you know, shall I do it? Shall I not do it? Like, if you love it, just go for it. And I really hope anything is possible. If you work hard, you have some talent.
Yeah.
I really do think you can make everything happen. You know, I think
Right.
that's a message I really want to
Yeah.
bring to
Yeah,
people.
and knowing
Yeah.
what you want, I think, is so important in this industry, and not kind of going in it blindly, but really knowing, okay, this is the direction. And sometimes that comes with time. I mean, in our early 20s, it's all kind of foggy and unclear, and then things start to line up in a way. But following what your heart wants, I think is really key. And that's what you did. I mean, you started out in psychology. You went to a Chanel show, had the butterflies in your stomach. Your first editorial had butterflies in it. I mean, it just is really cool how your story unfolded. And thank you so much for sharing and being with us here today. It's awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It was so much fun, honestly.
So I'll see you in Amsterdam or New York. We'll see what's next.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.